So thank you to everyone for coming along, and welcome to the Pain Awareness Zoom call that I'm doing today for you all. There's going to be room for questions at the end, and I have some questions for those of you that couldn't join us, so that you can watch the recording at a later date. But I'm going to begin by talking a little bit about my own experience with pain. That then gives you an idea of how you can experience pain and some of the discoveries that I've made along the way. I'm not a health professional. This is purely it's my own experience, my own journey with pain that has been quite intense at times. I used to experience pain all the time. Growing up, I was what was always termed a sickly child. So I pretty much always had either a sore throat or earache or something. And then I developed asthma in my late teens. And there's always been something, some physical condition, some injury, almost like not quite accident prone, but yeah, physical health has always been a big deal, a big part of my life, a big factor that has ruled me in a way. So it became something that when I learned to ascend became this almost hurdle actually to overcome. And I don't know if anybody's on this call that is not an ascender. There may well be. So Jackie, you're not an ascender. Okay, so I will target it towards those that aren't ascending as well. But hopefully to be able to help you both, there's different things I can suggest for those that haven't got the ascension techniques that can have an impact. And one of the exercises that I'm going to do with you today actually as well, it doesn't involve the ascension attitude, so that can be done for anybody actually. So yeah, probably the thing that pulled me up most first in my life was getting ME. ME, or chronic fatigue syndrome, it's a very difficult condition to have, because it almost feels like, you know, a catch-22, that you're so tired you can't do anything, but some exercise can be helpful. So for me, at one point, exercise was getting up from the sofa, walking to the toilet and back again, and I would be exhausted. That's the level of exhaustion that I experienced from that, which was a very difficult period of time. And one of the hardest things actually was the way people respond to you. And this is one of the questions that I've been asked actually, or somebody sharing their experience of how difficult it can be when the pain that you're in is not visible. There's no condition that's visible from the outside. How isolating it can feel actually, because people simply don't understand and don't believe. You know, if you haven't experienced chronic pain, you wouldn't know what it feels like to have that mind-numbing, nagging, all-encompassing pain that fills every single waking moment, almost like a voice inside of you screaming, "This hurts, this really hurts." When you're trying to have conversations with people and carry on your daily life, it's really debilitating actually to continue on with any life when you're in chronic pain. And I know what that feels like, and I feel really blessed now that I no longer have that experience. For me, I found various different things that help, you know, massage, Reiki, healing, help me to walk again actually, from the condition that I still have now, which I experienced like 17 years ago now with the pregnancy of my second child. It's called Symphysis Pubis Dysfunction, and it's the ligament at the front of the pelvis that doesn't function correctly, which started being a problem from the pregnancies and childbirth. And this condition has not been horrendous all along, but initially it was terrible, and that's where I experienced the chronic pain, the mind-numbing daily pain, literally across the whole of my middle, all across my pelvis, my lower back, the front, and it has a knock-on effect all the way up your spine. Then when anything's compromised in the pelvis area, it has a knock-on effect up and down your body, actually. And there's nothing that the doctors know how to help with it, except for putting a metal plate across the front of your pelvis and literally bolting that joint in place, which thankfully I didn't do because a few years after I said no to that operation and started to explore Reiki and other alternative complementary therapies, I heard a story of a lady who was a friend of my dentist, who had this operation, and it didn't really make much of a difference, and then eventually the metal plate sheared off within her, so she was only able to crawl around and in excruciating pain. So I'm grateful. I don't know if that was a just bad luck that happened to her, but it felt to me that it just wasn't a solution. That joint is meant to be flexible. When you breathe, when you sit, and I was told I would feel restricted for the rest of my life, and I'm like, oh, my highest desire is freedom, and that didn't appeal to me at all. So I went the alternative route, and I started exploring, and in that time, people lent books to me and guided me. Really, it's almost like if you really want to find a solution, if there's something that feels really important to you, the world does support you in that. I know it doesn't always appear that way, but the world does support you. And then it's just whether we have the eyes to see and the ears to hear the solutions and what is presented to us, which is why in the teaching of Ascension that I do, being present is the most important thing, really, because when you're present, you have got the eyes to see and the ears to hear, and you can recognize the help that comes to you. And it also completely changes your relationship with pain, being present. And one of the things that I've discovered along the way is when I first learned to ascend, that I was getting a lot of intense pain in different areas of my body, which was quite difficult to continue then on ascending, or for those who don't know what ascending is, you could replace that word with meditating. But along the way, I asked lots of questions of all the teachers that were there to guide me before I became a teacher myself, and played with all the little hints and tips and exercises, because it takes practice. We've learned from quite an early age to resist a lot in life, in particular emotions. I always remember being told, oh, don't cry, calm down, it's okay, So if I was angry, it was calm down. If I was crying, somebody would try and stop me. And with the best will in the world, people were trying to help me. They wanted me to feel okay, and yet, ironically, trying to make yourself or somebody else feel okay can often be part of the problem. The controlling aspect of trying to feel better often is actually results in you hanging on to the thing that you're trying to get rid of, whether that's a physical pain, an emotional pain, or a mental trauma. The more we try to change our experience now, the more things are strange, are difficult, and that actually, in my experience, interferes with the natural healing that the body always wants to do. There's homeostasis is the term, and that's the body always naturally returning back to balance, always healing itself. If there's something that isn't functioning correctly, the body will naturally heal itself. There's an innate intelligence in the body, and actually often all it needs is for us to get out of the way. Sometimes there's something that needs to be done. For my personal health condition that I have, one of the things I've had to do is wear a support belt. So because of that pelvis being loose and the joint not working, wearing a support belt has enabled it to hold together a little bit. It doesn't do the job completely, but it does enable then some movement to be able to take place. And so I could, start to begin to learn to walk again, which has been an interesting journey of self-discovery, actually. Part of, I think, what I've found useful is seeing how much fear there is in me, how much tension in my body because there's fear, because there's repressed anger. There's emotion that's always wanting to come up, but we've learned to push it down. And in pushing it down, we internalize it. And when we internalize our emotions, it has a knock-on effect and impact on our bodies. Our bodies have a whole process of not even just healing, but just to function effectively. A body, there needs to be movement in it, whether it's the blood flowing through your veins, breath is movement, your immune system requires movement in the body. Everything does, even digestion. It's all movement. So in order to be healthy, we need that natural movement in the body in order to function efficiently and effectively. And of course, what happens when there's any area of the body that's not working well is we tense against it, which actually makes the pain worse. But because we've learned to repress, to resist, that's often what happens. And usually, for me, in my experience, when I've noticed pain, there's usually already been resistance. Often we don't notice something until it's uncomfortable or it's causing something not to work effectively in our body. That's when it's flagged up to us. But prior to that happening, there's already been resistance, already been tension being held in the body. That's caused something to malfunction or go wrong. And even when there's a situation where a trauma has happened, whether it's a car accident, for me, I got to explore this a few years ago when my ribs were broken. And so obviously there's no psychological aspect to that. They were physically broken. There was several cracked ribs and broken, I think it was 2 sites of broken ribs, and that also then had an impact on my breathing. And so it was happening, it was happening, and there was no way there was no way around that. That was a situation that I was found myself in. But what I did get to do in that time was to really play and explore with being present, with allowing. In those days, I kind of looked at it as allowing the pain. But I've always found that a tricky one, because why would you allow pain? It hurts, you want it gone, don't you? Of course you want it gone. And so I did want the pain to go, but thankfully I had my ascension practice, and I had a great experience of just being present and being still and surrendered to this moment. And so I played with that, and whenever I was able to do that, to fully let go and let my body do what it needed to do, the pain vanished. That was a real eye-opener for me, to actually have an experience where the pain went. It just went, and there was absolutely no suffering. And also, what was a huge surprise to me in that was that not only was the pain gone, but I also had more movement. So with the broken ribs, I'd been like, any cough, sneeze, I couldn't laugh, any sudden movement, was like a really sharp stab of pain at the site of the broken ribs. And yet when I was fully present, when I played with that, I actually found that I could have more movement, that my movement was naturally more fluid and easy and graceful, at the same time as there being no pain. There was still a physical sensation at the site where my ribs were broken. I still experienced the sensation there, and could feel actually the movement in my body of the healing taking place. But it was easy. It was easy, and there was no suffering involved. And then I'd be pulled out of that and back into a world of pain and suffering. It was a dance, a back and forth dance that I wasn't able to sustain being present all of the time. But as I played with it, the more I was light and easy and curious. Actually, curiosity can be really useful. The more curious I got about how I was finding myself present, because it felt like it just happened, like spontaneously. I would just, stop fighting and become present. The more I played with that, the longer I stayed present, the more I was able to sustain that experience for greater periods of time. And that was a huge learning curve for me, actually, to see then and apply that, since my ribs healed up quite quickly, actually, and since then it's come back to my existing health conditions, which is mostly like the asthma, often sore throats, often a tension here I get, and the symphysis pubis that I get with the whole lower back pain and pain in my right hip. And it's an ongoing journey, really. Currently, I'm not experiencing any pain, which, and very little in the last year. It's been on and off, this condition, as in I've had it the whole time, but how debilitating it is has changed. So hormones affect it. So when I'd got to the point where it was really good, I was able to run and dance again. And then menopause hit, and I think it's the hormones in that's had a different an impact on the condition again. So last May, everything flared up again, and I couldn't walk for a few days, and it was a whirlwind of emotion actually coming up, and that's where I come back to the recognition how big an impact emotion and any repression of emotion has on my physical health. Allowing the emotion to come up, and almost when I'm struggling, when there's any part of my physical condition that feels difficult again for me, that I almost go, right, what am I holding on to here? And you don't need to get an answer. There doesn't need to be and you certainly don't want to be thinking. You don't want to be trying to analyze and work it out mentally, because the mind doesn't know. The mind can only draw from your existing experience, and there might be some areas that you understand intellectually, and so that kind of then creates almost a thinking loop, trying to work or think your way out of whatever pain you're currently experiencing, and you might come up with solutions that way. But in my experience, any solutions that you come up through thinking are limited. They can be helpful, but for me, the ones that have made the biggest difference are like those eureka moments where I've struggled and battled against it, and then given up because I can't take anymore. And then in the space of that surrender, the answers come, whether it's a course of action or whether things just become easy because I've, in that moment of surrender, just become present through grace. And then my body can do what it needs to do. And that, I think, is the biggest challenge in a way, whether you ascend or whether you don't ascend, is everything is always wanting to come back into balance. So any emotions that you've repressed are always going to want to come up. Any part of your body that is holding tension in is always wanting to release. And that can cause feelings of aching, irritation, and any symptoms that you have can intensify. If symptoms are intensifying at any time, I've always discovered that that's because I'm resisting. There's that natural healing that wants to take place, and is almost like there's certain areas of my body where there's just a fearful reaction to it, that if I let that sensation happen, almost like something bad is going to happen, or I'm going to be back to not being able to walk again. In my situation, we all have our own story as to what we're experiencing, and it's individual to everyone, and it's just recognizing for yourself what your story is and where you're holding on. When I say story, I mean there's always something that's happened that you can relate your pain to, whether it's an emotional story or some physical event that happened, whether you were involved in a car crash or you broke your leg or something. There'll be some story that your mind will go to that will want to try and explain everything that's happening. And yet it can be useful to know that, but that's not necessarily going to change how you physically feel. The most impactful thing for your body is to be able to rest fully. And the only time you're resting fully is when the mind is at rest too. So anything that you can do that will allow the mind to rest, to stop the questing, the searching, the striving for an answer, the resistance to the experience that you're having, and anything that leads you to surrendering to that, allowing that, is what is going to make the biggest difference to your physical state of your body. So pain is, and you might already know this, pain is a signal. It's simply a signal from the part of your body to your brain. And one of the things that I tried when I was in chronic pain was a TENS machine. I don't know if any of you have heard of those or know what they are or have ever tried one. And so, yeah, I had a TENS machine that I would wear at the site of the pain in my lower back. And it would be like a little electric shock that would interrupt that signal from the part of the body to the brain, and I wouldn't experience the pain. The only problem with this for me is I've got very sensitive skin. And so there was a limited amount of time I could use that for before my skin got too irritated and uncomfortable and aggravated by the shock. So I couldn't keep going. So I would use it occasionally when the pain was really bad, just to give myself a rest in a way, a reprieve from the constant mind-numbing, excruciating pain that I was experiencing. But it gives us a clue. It gives us a clue of what we can do about pain, how we can approach it differently. Because if it's just a signal to the pain, and that being interrupted can stop it, then maybe there are other ways that we can stop that signal getting through, or allow the signal to get through without there being a mental interpretation of what that means. Because that's what impacts on our experience, what the mind tells us about the pain. That affects our experience. Anything we experience is always affected by what we have our attention on. And if we have our attention on the dialogue in our mind, and we're listening to that commentary, which we're very trained to do, it's a very strong habit to listen to that. And let the thoughts that we have about anything govern our experience. So if we are listening, and often that's an unconscious process, we're listening to what our mind is telling us about our physical pain, then that is what we will experience, and we will suffer. Thinking also requires a huge amount of energy, and as long as we're thinking, we are actually continually giving instructions to our body, and the instructions that the mind gives is not necessarily going to help the physical condition that you have. And often the instructions that are given from your mind is, it's not clear about what's going on. It's actually just going round and round in circles about the situation, and so conflicting messages are being given to the body. And it's like, you know, the mind is the puppet master, and the body is the puppet, and so it's continually being controlled and constricted, and the body is trying to respond to every single instruction. And of course, if that's not coherent, if that's not one-pointed, then it's going to cause a lot of dysfunction in the body, and a lot of strain and stress and tension, as the body is trying to follow what the mind is telling it. So the best thing for the body is one clear instruction, or better still, silence. Complete radio silence. The mind not to be giving any instruction to the body, then the body can take over and do its thing. The natural intelligence, the natural healing that the body is always capable of, it's designed to heal itself. So when there's radio silence from the mind, that quietens down and the mind is still, that's the only time the body gets full, deep rest. And then it can do its thing. It can heal, it can recover, redress the imbalances, and come back into a harmonious, efficient healing, allowing the body to function effectively, whether it's healing a part of the body or just, you know, the natural immunity and sending the oxygen around in your blood that it needs to do to continue to function effectively and be healthy. So I don't know if that helps at all to understand a little bit more about the impact and the effect that the thinking mind has on the body. For me, that's helped. That's made a difference in my experience. And having that level of rest is just conducive to being healthy. And then the body can just be at ease. And for me, some health conditions, so for example, my asthma, when I'm battling with it and there's a bit of struggling breathing, and I discovered this through accident actually. Basically, my inhalers that I take, I have ones for relieving my asthma and ones for controlling it, that I take every day. And there was one time when I went to pick up my inhaler to use it because I was struggling to breathe, and just the picking up and bringing it towards my mouth, and my asthma just calmed down completely. And I hadn't even used the inhaler, and I was just like, that's strange. So do I need to use this inhaler or not? And I could breathe fine, so I thought, well, I'll see what happens then. And I put it down and thought nothing more of it. But it was interesting to see how my body reacted without actually having the medication. You know, the power of the mind, the power of suggestion, like the Pavlov dogs example that I don't know. I think most people know about that, don't they? From science, just in school actually, learning about that. How every time the bell was rung when they were fed, and then eventually the bell could be rung and they salivated even without the food being there. and the body responds in that same way. So that's what I was experiencing when I picked up my inhaler that time, and my breathing completely calmed down without me even taking the medication. Little things like that I find very intriguing, and I explore them further when I experience things like that, because I'm like, what other benefits can I have? Do I even need to be on this medication, you know, for example? And it's the same with, for me, coming present and just watching and being fully attentive to my body and seeing what differences that can have when I'm noticing that I have a pain that comes up. Or for me these days, it's more of a gentle ache, or just the beginning of a whisper of a sensation, because I'm quite practiced at paying attention to everything and seeing what's going on without responding and reacting. So you start to get to see the more subtle levels of the mind working and the mind-body connection. You get to see it all. So it goes from being a concept or something that you believe or don't believe to a direct experience of a direct understanding of the whole mechanism of the mind and the mind-body relationship, and what makes a difference to that. What factors help the body? What factors help your experience to be more enjoyable, more rested, more healthy? And it fascinates me. I find it very, very very intriguing, and yeah, I love finding ways that make a difference for myself, obviously for my own experience. So I'm not experiencing those severe levels of pain anymore, even though I've had the same level of immobility with my Symphysis pubis condition. The first time I had that, to the point where I couldn't walk, I was in excruciating pain. And yet when it happened again last May, there were times when it built up to pain, but because I caught it, I saw it, and I used my ascension attitudes, and I used my experience of being still and present, the pain levels didn't build up. The surrender happened, the battle within ceased. And when the battle within ceases, then the body can do its thing, and the suffering only happens when you resist. You know, I remember hearing that from my teacher, Krishnananda Rashaya, Maharishi, we sometimes refer to him as. He's been the person who's made me realize that there's a choice. From when I did my Mastery of the Self course to become a Bright Path Ishaya monk and teach the practice of ascension, the question on my course that he posed to us was peace or pain. Which do you want? And I'm like, well, that's a no-brainer. I want peace. And I remember hearing that, and you know, just thinking, well, that's interesting. You know, I was not in pain at the time, so it was. I was curious about it, but there was no physical experience for me to relate it to at that moment in time. So you know, I let it go, and then a few days later, I got to see that choice was possible again. And it happened when this pelvic condition flared up on the course that I was on, the Mastery of the Self course. I was walking up a hillside, and part of what happens with my condition is when it becomes loose, I can't lift my legs. So to walk up a hill becomes really, really difficult. So I was going up this hill, just about managing to get my legs to lift me forwards. And it took a huge amount of effort. And by the time I reached the top of the hill, I just collapsed, you know, sobbing, because it was painful and it was exhausting. And it was an emotional experience, just like the frustration of this happening again. And I sat down and I was just crying and just thinking, I can't do this, I can't do this. How am I going to be here in this environment if I can't even walk? And yeah, I was just in absolute despair. And I just thought, I can't do this. And just in that moment of desperation, I surrendered, because my mind hadn't got an answer, didn't know what to do. And it's just like, oh. And in that space, that question, peace or pain, came back to me, and everything that my teacher had spoken about. There being a choice between peace or pain in any given moment. And so, yeah, obviously, I'm just like, well, I've done the pain thing. I'm experiencing it right now. I don't want this anymore. I don't want this. I want peace. And it was such a passionate decision for me. It was just like 100%, I want peace. If that's a possibility, if that's the choice here, I want peace. And for 3 or 4 days, I was just completely rested, and peace was all I experienced. I still couldn't walk very well, but there was absolutely no suffering. Absolute pristine peace. No battling, no fighting. I made the choice, and it sustained for a few days until the habit kicked back in again, and the struggle, the back and forth dance of the struggling, the thinking, the battling against what I was experiencing, the wanting it to be different from how it is right now, popping back up again. And then I suffered. Then it was difficult again. But it kept coming back to me, and it's something that keeps coming back to me. Peace or pain. And if you know how to make the choice for peace or pain, you're always going to choose for peace, aren't you? Absolutely, 100% of the time you're going to choose for peace. And then it really just comes down to recognizing that there's a choice in the moment that you are in, because we forget. We get so caught up in the experience that we're having, and the resistance to it, which is so unconsciously built into us. The habit is so strong. It's not our natural state, but it's something that we've all learned to do. So it's very strongly there as an unconscious habit that we resist everything. So there'll be times when, yeah, you'll just be suffering. Things will be difficult and be hard. But the minute you notice, then you can make the choice. And then all you need to know is how to make the choice. And one of the things that I've found most useful is just stopping, just paying attention. So if you just want to play along with me for a moment and try a little exercise, are you all happy to do that? Yeah? Brilliant. And for those on the recording as well, you can play along with this when you hear it. And it's a very simple thing to do. The mind will always complicate everything, and it's a doing, and this is the reverse of that. It's the opposite. It's an undoing. Just paying attention. So if you just want to close your eyes and just watch, just as if the back of your eyelids are a television screen, and you're just watching. Whatever you see, just watch. You may see something. You may see colors, lights, shapes. You may experience thoughts flowing through your mind. You may experience just blankness, just nothingness. Whatever it is that you can see, whatever it is that you're aware of, just watch. There's nothing to do, nowhere to go. You just watch. And give yourself permission to relax, to rest right now. Allow your shoulders to sink. Any tension in your forehead, your jaw, your neck, your shoulders, back, knees, anywhere. Just allow that tension to soften and melt. And just tune into the body. Just feel yourself in your body fully. Just observe it. If you have a physical pain right now, just watch that part of the body. If you have any other physical sensations that are uncomfortable, just watch. Just feel it all fully. Don't fight with it. Don't need it to be any different. Allow the sensations to be there and allow movement to happen in your body. The idea of allowing pain is a difficult one to do. So I find it easier if you say to yourself, well, I'm going to allow the movement of my body, that natural movement of homeostasis, the natural movement that your body wants to do. Just allow it all. Notice if there's any dialogue about what you're experiencing. And just let those thoughts come and let them go. They don't know. You don't need to think about this. Just pay full attention to your body. Because that's all that's happening when you're thinking, is you're paying attention to the thought stream in your mind. You put all of your attention onto your body, 100% of your attention right now onto your body, then the mind quietens down. If dialogue pops back up again, then you've just put some of your attention on the mental dialogue. And just come back, 100% attention on your body. And particularly if you've got pain in your body, let your attention be there. And just give permission for your body to do what it needs to do. Allow the movement, allow your body to soften and move and do what it needs. Let it be exactly as it is right now, just right now. You can resist again in in a few seconds or a few moments, but right now, just let it all happen as it wants to happen. Feel the body. Allow yourself to breathe. If you know the ascension attitudes, then think the first ascension attitude now. If you don't have the ascension attitudes, then just start to become aware of your breath and allow your breath to come in and out of your belly. You're bringing your attention on your belly. Allow it to expand and contract as you breathe. Gently and easily in and out. Not forcing the breath. Just allowing the breath to come in and out as it wishes to. Gradually allowing it to be more smooth and even. And you can think another ascension attitude now, just the first one, and continue to watch. And those without the ascension attitudes, just keep paying attention to the breath, observing it, blowing in through the nose, expanding your belly, and flowing out through the nose, contracting the belly. Smoothly, slowly, evenly. gently. And just watch, allowing that process to continue of breath, gently in and out. And those with the ascension techniques, just gently think first praise again. Allowing that breath to continue in and out, slowly, naturally, easily. Allowing the body to do whatever it needs to do, easily and calmly. And just let it be peaceful. Let it be still. Let it be easy. And slowly open your eyes. And just take in your environment, the room around you. Notice the chair that you're sitting on. And just continue to watch. Pay attention. What are your surroundings like? Just note them. Take them in. Gently attentive. Just noticing that this moment is happening. Is it peaceful? Is it still? Is it easy? Perfect. Let it be peaceful. Let it be still and let it be easy. Good job, guys. It's that easy. And then it's just coming back to letting everything be easy through noticing the breath and just allowing that breath to come in and out and just watching it. So it's a beautiful meditation technique just to allow. And when that ease and that peace happens in the body, then it allows the mind to calm down too. The mind-body connection always has an impact. If you still the mind, the body becomes still. You still the body or calm the body down, and the mind calms down. Always works that way. So there's a few questions I have from people who couldn't be on the call. So I'm just going to go through those now. And then if there's any, I'm just looking here now, any questions from those of you that are on the call. So Sheila, you're saying, I have pain in my upper arms, much worse at night. Also neck pain, which I think may be due to incorrect posture. So I'm making an effort to put my shoulders back, also doing exercises. Yeah, and so did you find that, Sheila? Let's find where Sheila is. Where are you? Oh, there you are, Sheila. Did you find when you did that exercise, was the pain there then? Let me find where you are. Oh, there you go.
I'd feel in pain at all. Yeah, but it often disturbs me at night, yeah, so I descend. It helps. It certainly helps. Yeah. So thank you for that. That was lovely. So relaxing.
So was the pain wasn't there when we were doing that little exercise?
No,
No.
no pain at all. No.
And so maybe when that happens at night, you can try that. Try just doing that, just watching where you're feeling it in your arms, and just giving permission and allowing that movement to come back in. And then gently using your ascension attitude, just the first one. I find when anything is intense and painful, for those of you that ascend, just come back to the first ascension attitude. It just keeps everything simple, and it's the foundation for all the other techniques. So it's really useful to just come back to that one. I find myself. If you find anything else more effective, then use that one. But I find just coming back to basics the most effective thing to do when intensity happens. For me, the thing that becomes intense sometimes when I'm using the ascension techniques is I get attention here, and again, it's just allowing that movement to happen wherever you feel an intensity in your body, or a pain, or an irritation, or an aching, sometimes even an itching. Just allowing that movement to happen in the body, and gently coming back with the technique, and then watching and just allowing that natural movement to flow again. And for those of you that don't have the ascension techniques, then just do that with just watching, and then bringing your attention to your breath and allowing that natural, easy flow in and out with your breath, and ensuring that the breath is coming into the belly.
That's a good question.
Yeah, who's?
It's Pushpa.
Oh, hello. Yes.
Hi. You just mentioned that tension in your forehead.
Yes.
Ascending. I get that quite a lot. What is that? What is it? A release?
Yeah, for me, it's a few things. It can be a few things actually. It can be that you are straining while you're ascending, and I know that's something that there's an area that when I'm there's any strain or any trying or controlling in my practice, that the tension pops up here. So then it's just coming back, watching. Always just coming back and watching where the sensation is, and allowing to the best of your ability, and then gently coming back with the ascension attitude again, and continuing to watch. So it can be just a strain that's happening.
Yeah.
It's a place where I hold a lot of tension anyway. So for me, I never used to get this tension here until I learned to ascend.
Yeah, same here.
The very first session on my first sphere course was when I started to become aware of this tension, and what I've realised through the years, it's been 10 years now, is that the tension that you hold in your body when you do any meditation technique, but particularly the ascension attitudes, because they are very effective at just allowing that movement to happen again. But if we're resisting, then obviously you then get a build-up of tension, a build-up of intensity, because the ascension techniques are allowing everything to move, and then we're going no. And that unconsciously happens before we become aware of it, and then we start to become aware of the intensity happening, whether it's in the forehead or shoulders or knees, or wherever you experience any tension or pain when you use the ascension techniques. So it's a gentle dance, I think, is probably the thing that I found the most useful to frame it as. That there's this process of releasing that's always happening, and even if you don't have the ascension techniques or you don't meditate, actually the body is always trying to be relaxed and at rest and heal. So we'll have these little tensions that pop up, and it's just actually everything's trying to release, and then we resist and hold on, and so it sustains within us. And so if you just keep giving permission for your body to move, your body to rest and relax, and then gently coming back to the technique, once you've allowed everything's calmed down a little bit, then you can just reintroduce the technique and then watch and see what happens next. And be curious, you know, be curious to what will happen next. More attentive to the backdrop, the blankness, the space, than the sensations in the body or the thoughts running through the mind or the emotional responses. What's the context? What's the backdrop to all of those? You know, for thoughts to be there, it's sound. It's sound, even though it's an internal sound rather than a spoken one. And the context to sound is silence. The context to the movement of the thoughts is stillness. And there's space for all of the physical body sensations. There's more space in our body than there is atoms. 99.99% empty space. So in any given moment, we can just tune into that. The ascension techniques automatically take you to stillness, silence, and space. Automatically. And then they systematically release all of the stress stored in our nervous system. So everything's going to be released. And then our only job is to watch, be the witness while all of that is happening. And if you haven't got the ascension techniques, you can do the same with breath. You're just watching and allowing. Coming back to that movement, focusing on the breath and letting it be gentle and easy, finding its own natural rhythm of in and out, and just gently observing it. Does that answer your question, Pushpa?
It does, yeah, it does. I feel great, actually. I did have a little bit of well, actually, I think I'm heading towards a frozen shoulder. And I did have a bit of pain before we started, but it seems to feel as if there's warmth in the area.
Yeah, and that's just allowing the movement back in.
Yeah. I'm going to go for a walk after this. So, yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, and when we get stress releasing, one of the things we always say is to drink water to allow the toxins to flush through our system. And movement too. Going for a walk just allows the body, you know, to shake it off, bring that movement back in, and allow the stress to move through us more effectively and efficiently. Jackie, would you like to ask a question? Just one moment. Let me unmute you. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. Firstly, thank you very much for today. It's been really enlightening and I've really enjoyed it. I do have to go in a moment because I've got another call. But what I would like to ask you is, yes, I do have the first attitudes. I did do the first sphere of ascension. 40 years ago, I had the great privilege of learning TM with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi, which was wonderful. And obviously I still have that technique and I do still have my mantra. My question is, when I'm all consumed with the pain, which strangely enough is in my pelvis, it's quite complicated, as probably yours is. I have a lot of nerve pain through an operation that I had. And I have that constantly. It's so uncomfortable sitting down. This is why I was walking about sometimes when you were talking. As I say, I still have my mantra. Would you say that would work the same with eyes open when I have the chronic pain when I'm working or doing whatever as the first attitudes? What would you say to that?
Well,
I mean, I know obviously ascension is what you're doing, and obviously your teacher been doing it for 10 years. So I mean, it's a stupid question, really, because you're probably going to say, no, do your attitudes. But I just wondered what your thoughts were about that. I mean, over the years, I've had a lot of experience with prayer and Christ, and so, you know, I know prayer works as well, but I just wondered what your thoughts were about that.
Well, I can't comment on the transcendental meditation because I've never learned that, so I don't know. I don't have any experience about what those techniques do for you. I've met quite a lot of ascenders over the years that learnt transcendental meditation, which is TM that you're referring to, and then came along to learn the ascension techniques. And I think some people have almost gone back and forth, you know, they love the TM, but something usually always draws them back to the ascension attitudes. I know I heard one gentleman say he'd done transcendental meditation for, I think, about 30 years. And he'd only been using the ascension attitudes when I met him for about 5 weeks. And he said he's got more out of those 5 weeks than the 30 years prior of transcendental meditation. So that's about all I have to go on. I do know that using first praise and keeping it simple, the ascension techniques are a program that kind of leads us in. And I think the simplicity of that is what makes it more effective.
Okay.
Than the transcendental meditation mantras. But, you know, play, just like the people who haven't got any ascension attitudes or transcendental meditation, and they'll be using the breath that I suggested. Explore, you know, if you want to play with them, see if you notice the difference yourself. Maybe you can be the one telling us the answer to that.
Thank you very much. Thank you. I appreciate that. And as I say, thank you for being here.
You're very welcome, Jen.
I have to go, but thank you. God bless.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
So there's a few people putting their hands up. Does somebody else want to ask a question? You put your hand up now. No?
Just waving goodbye.
Oh, you're waving goodbye. Okay. You need to go as well, do you? Okay. Bye-bye.
Oops. Sorry.
So,
I meant to the lady there.
oh, you're just saying goodbye to the lady. Okay, fair enough. So do any of you that are on the call now have a question that you'd like to ask in person?
There's a question in the chat, Mira, from Siri.
Sorry?
There's a question in the chat box.
From Siri, yeah, okay. Patty was just raising her hand. Did you want to ask a question, Patty? Let me just find you to unmute you.
Picking up on something
You're unmuted
said.
now, Patty.
Oh, sorry. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yeah.
Yeah. It was something picking up on what you had said earlier, in that yes, you had this specific pelvic pain, but then you started to feel pain in lots of areas of your body. And in a way, that's a little bit what's happening with me, which I find curious. I've been ascending for 3 years now, and I know for some people it goes instant peace, instant silence, you know, like you said, the TM person, they'd experienced so much in those first 5 weeks. But for me, I have had periods of peace. For example, this morning, my ascension was incredibly peaceful, but I've also had so much turmoil, and it's triggered lots and lots and lots of busy mind, which obviously is a lot of stuff moving and shifting. And at times I've almost thought, this isn't for me. It's creating more turmoil than peace, and it's too much. I can't take this. And so maybe that is also now mirroring into physical things. I seem to be in quite a state of inflammation. Exactly a year ago, I had a very, very severe eye condition, autoimmune, nearly lost my sight in one eye, autoimmune eye condition. And I've got this disc problem at the moment, which is acute pain, but I've also got 2 other areas of intense pain. So it's like this morning, before I did the ascension, thinking, what is going on? You know, it's like my body is having an explosion, really, of this reaction of pain. And, you know, and at times it's like, what have I done wrong in my life? You know, why is this so inflamed? But it really made sense. The mind-body connection, obviously, I'm aware of, but just finding the silence to allow my body to heal. So, you know, the silence, the stillness, rather than all the busy mind having it's like white noise, if you like, on the radio through all of my nervous system, but finding the stillness and the silence, there won't be all those discordant vibrations in my body, and my body will naturally find its way of healing. So it wasn't so much a question, just sort of interesting to pick up what you'd said about that multi-area pain, not just being a specific symptom pain. Just curious.
Yeah.
And it makes sense. That was a bit rambling, wasn't it?
No, and it's really just comes back to letting the body do what it needs to do, and just being the observer or the witness to that, so that you're not fighting against it or often trying to help it. You know, so we try to help the body sometimes and actually get in the way of the natural healing that wants to take place, and the suffering only comes when you're resisting the natural healing process. If you actually surrender to it and allow the body to do what it wants to do, then there'll be no suffering, in my experience anyway. That's when everything gets easy. You still might have sensations that you're aware of, but it will no longer be pleasant and there'll no longer be suffering. In any given moment, if you notice any dialogue about your physical state, whether it's one pain or lots of pains, or, you know, often there can be then a concern, you know, if there's something to do with your eyes, you know, what that might mean. And sometimes that's what causes the problem more than anything. One of the questions that I was sent actually was somebody who has a clicking knee at the moment, and it's not actually hurting her, but it's, you know, she said it's a problem, and I'm like, well, so if it's not hurting you, what's the problem then? But it's then the fear of what that means, or if damage is taking place, you know. So it's that you know, recognizing that that's what the mind is doing, and that will have an impact on your experience. You will experience what the mind is telling you. If there's worry thoughts, you will experience worry in your body, because you always feel the emotion in your body. But if you recognize the dialogues there and watch and pay full attention, the voice stops, and then your experience changes then, and that's then when the healing can take place most effectively, or just the natural running of the body, actually. So sometimes their symptoms just vanish completely and utterly, and other times you just change your relationship with them. So when my ribs were broken, I could still feel the site of the break, and there was a physical sensation there, but there was no pain and there was no suffering. So did somebody say that there's some questions? Was it Siri? So yeah, I'm just having a little look at the questions. Excruciating period pains, but my mind has decided that since it's a constant every month and only becoming worse, it seems, it's so hard to see it as movement, and that the body is helping it. So it's hard to just allow it. This particular decision my mind is making, that this isn't changing, that makes it so difficult to allow. So when there's dialogue that is, and sometimes we don't see You don't see the thinking that's happening. There's so much thinking that goes on that when you're immersed in the thinking and experiencing yourself as the thinker of the thoughts, that you are analyzing the situation and trying to understand it. We miss sometimes that we're thinking, but the thinking will have an impact on your body, Siri. And it can feel like it's locked in sometimes, and I know exactly what that feels like. For me, often it would be that it would intensify, but for some people it can just be that it's just a strong pain, and it's like locked and solid, and it's unmovable. You're never going to allow pain to be there. Well, you can. I've done it a few times, and then the pain has gone completely. But it's not an easy one to do, to say to allow the pain to be there. So what I'm suggesting is that you allow your body to move. Yeah, just allowing the life blood to flow in your body, to just allow movement within that area that is painful. And just watch and play with gently thinking the first ascension attitude, and then continuing to watch, and to the best of your ability, allowing that movement to happen, and just seeing, being curious, a little bit curious about it, you know. Any desire for that pain to go keeps the pain in place. Like the minute you want that pain gone, you are holding on to it with all your might. And that's the tricky thing, is like, you know, I experience times where I've fully allowed pain to be there and it's gone. And then I've gone, right, okay, so the next time I've got a lot of pain, right, now I'm going to allow that pain to be there, so it will go. It's not the same thing. Any need for that pain to go, any need for it to be any different from how it is right now is holding on. There's controlling in there, and friction in there, and tension in there, and it's going to keep it locked in place. It takes a lot of practice and a lot of investigation of just paying attention to start to change your relationship with that. And the other thing that can be really useful if there's a huge amount of pain for you and it just doesn't seem to be budging with anything I've suggested, is to pick up the phone and ask for help with an Ashaya teacher. You know, whether it's me or whether it's, there's many Ashaya teachers out there that are very able and happy to help you if there's a time when the pain is intense or you're struggling in any way, shape or form. We're here to help, we're here to serve, and it's our honour to do so, and we're more than happy to do that. What happens then when you pick up the phone and ask for help is you are becoming vulnerable. You're opening yourself up. You're enabling the stuck energy, the stuck physical pattern. You're allowing that to start to move just by asking for help. And then the answer that you get, the interaction that you get with an Ashaya teacher will also help. There'll be, you know, suggestions, or we'll just listen. You know, sometimes actually all you need to do is just verbalize it, or just be heard, and that can help things shift too. So yeah, pick up the phone and ask for help.
Yeah, the problem is I'm so scared of the pain, so I jump straight into my box of painkillers just by the slightest, you know, sensation of it. It just scares the hell out of me. So there's usually no time to pick up the phone, but I mean, I sort of did with you the other day, but yeah, it's really hard. But it's a good idea, actually.
And whether you take painkillers or you don't take painkillers, you know, it doesn't matter if you're experiencing the pain and it frightens you and you take the painkiller, you can still ask for help. It doesn't matter at what point you ask for help. It's just the offer's there.
Yeah.
You know, we can either try and do it on our own, and then there's a holding on and a contracting in when you try and manage it on your own, or there's a being humble and asking for help. and that in itself is an expansive experience. You know, we're vulnerable, and it's very uncomfortable sometimes, but we're opening ourselves up by asking for help, which that in itself will allow stuff to start to move through you and change.
Yeah. Thanks.
Monica, would you like to ask a question? Let's see, unmute. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry I joined a bit late, but I was just curious to know, one of my therapy that I work with is emotional release behind pain and unblocked emotion, and I was just curious to know, like with your own experience, that when you have done this allowing and watching, and then you feel or you notice the release of the pain that was there before, have you experienced emotional release that was behind it, as it kind of releases as well? Has it been your experience to notice that as well?
Yeah, and actually, particularly when things intensify and intensify and intensify, that's often when there is an emotional release, actually. And that can often be harder, you know. I've experienced allowing pain to be there and it just going, like, easily, effortlessly, nothing, no emotion, just resting and ease. And I've also experienced sobbing, crying, you know, and even anger, you know, just like that surge of emotion, and it can feel unsafe to do that, you know, like we mustn't let go of control, we mustn't let ourselves express. It's almost like there's a danger to doing that, because, you know, we've been you know, told off and humiliated and shouted and judged for having outbursts when we were younger. So we've learned to, you know, we mustn't do this. It's dangerous to express, to allow ourselves to actually just be and let whatever wants to move. And so, yeah, I've had many stress releases where I've been a gibbering wreck on the floor, with lots of lovely people supporting me. Well, my husband, you know, he's yeah, always ever patient, and always there for me, and that's actually what we need when there's emotion coming, or physical pain coming, is we need somebody to just be there with us and just let us know it's okay, in order for us to actually in that moment just go, oh, and just let whatever happens happen. And, you know, sometimes it can be, you know, crying or anger, or shouting, and just expressing my frustration. And, you know, other times has been just, you know, a huge surge of energy, and expecting a rant or a cry, and nothing, you know, maybe just one little tear trickle down my face, and then the energy, feeling it and gone. There's no one way it expresses, there's no one way you move through this. It's just being willing and open to allowing it to leave however it leaves, and having somebody there who loves you and supports you and has no opinion on what you're going through, I think is the greatest help that you can have. So that might be somebody you know, close to you, if you have friends or family members that will just listen to you, and not need to fix you, because you're not broken. You just need to let the process happen by itself, or an Ishaya teacher. We're all here to help you, to, you know, speak with you on the phone, or answer emails or messages, if that's the only way it feels safe to do it. You know, if you don't feel, I have a few people who just email me and then I email them back because they don't feel comfortable to pick up the phone. So however it feels safe for you. Probably the biggest impact is picking up the phone. That probably gets the greatest release. It's more beneficial in my experience. But yeah, even just emailing, just whatever you feel that you can do. It's just like gently, gradually learning that it's okay to ask for help, and doing it whenever you feel you can.
And sorry, I missed your story of, you know, the story of your pain and ascension journey. I heard some of it, so I'm just curious about if you're still experiencing chronic pain on and off, do you find that when you do this process that you've shared with us, like the allowing and just, you know, witnessing it, surrendering it, that it resolves? And then, so is it almost for you like a trigger to bring you to the present, to like put an attitude there, like, you know, when it arises, you just, and as soon as you put your attitude or this process, do you find it resolves quite easily? Is that what you're saying your experience was?
Yeah, it's changed over the years. Initially, it was quite difficult to do, and the experiences were fleeting and almost seemed like accidental, and I wasn't quite sure how to actually choose for it and get and allow things to be easy again. But for me, whenever I get any discomfort these days, I don't tend to get too much pain because there's not that level of resistance in me anymore. Mm-hmm. I find it's just a reminder that we've left the present moment, which is a good thing. You know, the adversity that we experience, the pain that we experience, any difficulty that we experience within our bodies or in the world around us, it's just a signal that we've left. We're not present. It's not easy and it's not enjoyable. Then we're not present. We've left this moment to think about it, and then we are going to experience right now through the filters of the mind, through the ideas and beliefs that we have about our body, about ourselves, and about the world. So for me, it's just an invitation to come back, and the more you make it about coming back and the remembering, and the less we beat ourselves up or fight or get frustrated that we've left, the easier it gets. You know, because we unconsciously leave. We don't choose to leave. It's habit. We leave only through habit. So don't worry about whenever you leave. If something happens that's difficult, celebrate that actually. Be happy that it's flagged up, you know, that it's caught your attention, because then that gives you the choice, because the best place to live this life is right here, fully present, fully alive. And then the quality of life is completely different. Everything is experienced from stillness and silence rather than from the version of events that your mind will tell you it is. So it's always about where your attention is now. You will experience where your attention is right now. So if you're thinking, you'll experience whatever your mind is saying. It's like the puppet master that will govern how we respond, how we react, how we think, how we feel. Or we come back to this moment, and then silence is the foundation for your experience right now, and the natural state of being still is always enjoyable. It's always easy, it's always peaceful and happy and pain-free. I don't experience any pain.
That's really lovely to hear, and it's really clear, and so thank you for sharing that. It's beautiful. Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Does anybody else have any questions? I don't know if there was any more in the chat box. Just requests about emailing the recording. I will be posting the recording of this once I've worked out how to how to do that. Vasu Prada, I've had a pounding in my head, like hearing my blood. My mind judges it as something wrong. I've attempted to allow, and still want to fix it. Yeah, so I don't know if would you like to expand on that at all, Vasu Prada? Or shall I just answer? I'll unmute you. Oh.
Well, no, you know, it's 9 o'clock. Well, it's early here in the States. And, but anyways, it's amazing because I totally understand what you're going through and stuff. And I really appreciate you doing this. This is wonderful. Yeah, I probably have too much medical training. So then my mind goes into something's wrong, you know, or yeah. So I really get that a lot of it is my mind, and to really learn how to catch it. yeah, if you can expand on anything else, but yeah, there also may be, you know, alignment difficulties and stuff like that that I'm working with too.
Yeah. You don't even really have to try and catch it, because it's always going to be flagged up. You know, like there's always going to come a point where you recognize that you're thinking, and then in that moment, then you just choose. You just pay attention and allow. And for me, I think when we say allow, it can kind of feel like that's something that we have to do, whereas actually really allowing happens when we just pay attention. Just coming back to paying attention, watching your body, noting your surroundings, just being attentive to whatever you're noticing right now. That takes us out of our mind into our body, into just paying attention and being present now. So you don't have to be on guard, so to speak. It's always going to be flagged up for you when you've left. There's always going to be something that you realize, yeah, I'm battling with this, I'm fighting with this. There's a story about what's going on. There's dialogue, there's thinking. You're always going to recognize that, and then you just come back. Make it about celebrating when it's shown to you, and don't worry about when you forget, because it just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter when you forget. What you put your attention on grows, and if we keep putting our attention on the fact that we're forgetting, you'll get more of that. Put your attention on the fact that you always remember through grace, and make it that simple. You notice, you choose, and that for me has made life a whole lot simpler, because I used to be the queen of self-violence, of beating myself up because I'd forgotten. I used to find that so frustrating. It'd be all about the fact that I'd failed again, and I hadn't followed the instruction. What was wrong with me? Why can't I remember? I know how to do this. And there was just this whole then battle and dialogue about that. Whereas really, like, the minute you notice, celebrate, hooray, because now now you can do something about it. And then it's just about making the choice. And if you can't make the choice, you ask for help. And we'll help you, we'll help guide you back. Whether that's ascenders asking teachers or teachers asking teachers, I still ask for help if I need it. That's, for me, the beauty of the community, the Shire and Ascension community, that we don't have to do this alone. We never have to do this alone. It's so easy, but it's only easy when when you actually follow the instruction rather than think about it. But for me, I kind of, it's like the Ascension attitudes do the work for you. And just like if you're following a recipe for baking a cake, you can get all the ingredients out and go to make your cake and just do it. Or you can stop and go, right, now what was the instructions again? Now what I have to do, and then that stops you from actually baking the cake. It stops you in your tracks. You're no longer actually practicing Ascension. You are just thinking about practicing Ascension. And so often I've caught myself doing that, thinking about enlightenment, thinking about how to use my Ascension attitudes, or thinking about teaching others, when they need help. Like little dialogue, little teacher mirror pops up in my head and teaches to people, and it's just like there's nobody there to teach right now. And it's just coming back into the recognizing that there's just the dialogue there. My mind's trying to help me out rather than actually following the instruction, actually following the recipe and making the cake, actually stopping, paying attention, thinking an attitude, watching, just watching, and then everything's easy. But the mind is so subtle and so clever, it comes back in and we don't see it, just thinking about it all. Very, very clever. So it thinks about all the things that we know help, rather than actually just carrying out the instruction and just stopping and being attentive and aware to this moment.
Thank you.
So one of the other questions that I got was from somebody who was saying that probably the hardest thing for her is the fact that people don't understand that, yeah, people almost can be aggressive with you if you have chronic pain, or just completely lack of understanding and lack of compassion and a huge amount of judgment, you know, with, oh, you should be able to do this and you should be able to do that. And, you know I was labeled as lazy for quite some time from a few people, because when I had ME, I wasn't able to do anything. And too, with this Symphysis pubis condition I have, you know, and I can't walk. But it's not, there's nothing on the outside except when I wear my support belt. There's nothing for people to see what's going on inside of me. And what I've found with that is to stop making it important what other people think. It really doesn't matter what other people think. What matters is your own experience. And if you're fully present, you won't care what other people think. So make it more about coming back and being present than about what somebody else says. You know, it can be an invitation if somebody's being rude to you or judging you, or yeah, making unkind, unfair comments about your physical condition. Then just use that as an invitation to come back to full presence. You know, like you're just allowing a movie playing out. That person is just playing their role. It's their role to play. It's their understanding of the world. It's nothing to do with you. So you don't need to get involved. No one needs to get involved with what other people think. Just always come back to your own experience. If you do that, then you'll be happy and content no matter what other people think, no matter what judgments happen. The more we are comfortable and happy in our own self and comfortable to ask for help when we need it, sure of ourselves, knowing exactly what it is like for us, the more other people go along with that. There's no resistance then to what you're saying. The more we can stop editing and saying what we need to say in the moment that we need to say it, rather than, you know, feeling to say it and then being afraid to say it, and then only saying it when we're, you know, can't take any more. Then it's not a pure, clear transmission anymore. So for me, learning to say, even if I feel afraid and uncomfortable to say it and ask for help, to just do it. Just do it, and you blast through any of the discomfort and pain then, which is often more emotional than physical in that case, if you're worrying about what other people think and feel about how you can't manage in certain situations and you're just in pain. That for me has made the biggest difference, yeah, to stop making other people's opinion important, because their opinion is only based on their understanding of the world. It's limited. It's just their worldview, and it needn't impact on you. It needn't affect your experience of this moment at all. So another question I got was more about emotions, actually. As we use the ascension techniques, there are times when a lot of emotion just comes up and it's really uncomfortable. And the question was something along the lines of, do we do more ascending to stop the physical response that she was finding happens with the emotion, and then it becomes this physical pain? So there's nothing, even just that approach of, like, what do I do to stop the pain happening? You know, there's a controlling in there. And whenever you're controlling about pain, you're more likely to experience more pain. Letting it be exactly how it is right now, letting that emotion up to the best of your ability, and just seeing what happens. Maybe it'll result in physical pain, maybe it won't. It comes back to innocence for me. I think when we've had certain experiences, we hold those as expectations for the future. White slate clean. You've no idea what it's going to be like next time. Allow this moment to be exactly how it is, and it will be more effortless and easy and peaceful. Pain is possible. Pain is always possible, but suffering isn't necessary. And the minute you're recognizing that you're suffering, then you've just started to resist. You've just having some dialogue about the sensations in your body. No matter what expresses or what happens, if you come back to just paying attention and see what difference that makes to your experience now. Because for me, that's what changes everything. And you get more practiced at it. You know, it's like anything you do in life. The more you follow the instruction, rather than just thinking about it, the more practiced you will be, the more able you will be to make the choice to actually just stop and be present now, just in a state of allowing. Because when you're present, you're surrendered. When you're present, you're allowing. There's no fighting going on then. There's no resistance to what is, to what's happening in this moment, to the state of your body. And when you let everything be exactly as it is, your experience of it completely and utterly changes. But you can't have a plan for future to make sure you'll be okay the next time you resist. Just be here now. Always just come back now. And it's for me always been important to not going into firing off the ascension attitudes to try and change the way you feel. But ascension helps. It makes such a massive difference. But the minute you are using the ascension techniques to change the way you feel, or the experience of pain or symptoms in your body, the minute you're using them to try and make a change, all you're doing is holding on. And the ascension attitudes will work no matter what, so they're going to release everything. And that's when it can get really intense and uncomfortable. Because you're using an attitude, it's starting to release, and then you're no, I don't want this, I want it gone, I want it gone. And you use another attitude, and then it's releasing it, and no, and then it just builds up as a boiling pot of intensity. So when it gets intense, stop. Just stop ascending for a moment and just watch and allow. But using another meditation technique, if you're watching breath, just stop for a moment with trying to make it happen, and just watch. And allow everything to just gentle down. And then when it becomes more gentle again, then gently come back in with your technique. Just drop it like you're dropping a pebble in a pond. You drop a pebble in the pond, and then you can just watch it fall through the water gracefully and easily. And it's the same with the ascension attitude. You think it, you drop it, and then watch. You're watching your breath, you just observe it. You're not trying to change it, you just observe it and allow it to happen naturally and easily. Always, always easily. I think that was all the questions. If there's any more, then anybody wants to email me. My email address is mira@thebrightpath.com. Then feel free. It's been quite a long time, this call now, so I think it's probably a good time to end it. And if you want me to do another one, then let me know, and I'll do another one to continue answering any questions. And I'm here to speak to as well. Anybody wants to phone me and ask me for direct help, then please pick up the phone and ask me, and I'll be there for you.
Thank you so much, Mira. That's been beautiful. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Really lovely. Beautiful teaching. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're very welcome. Thank you.
Amazing.
Perfect. Well, thanks everyone. Goodbye.
Bye.